What's up, guys? Shmuley Warren here, Label Wiener, for another episode of Mislabeled. Special episode here. I have one of our best friends from college, for me, for Labes, I think similar.
Yeah, I mean, I actually met Jason when I think we first met in camp in Heller, way back in the day. Became friends there. Then when we moved into our apartment in Queens,
Right.
Jason, you were in Landers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
We reconnected there. Then I made your shidduch, so
Right.
that was that.
Right. You were my roommate for my first year in Landers, second semester.
Yeah.
Great times. 5A, apartment 5A. It was building 5, right? I think 5B. 5B. We were the second floor. So special guest here, all the way in from Florida. Came in for a wedding, but was generous enough to give us his time for. You guys are hearing this now, but we went through some technical difficulties. Not the first time we sat down for the pod here with Jace. But want to jump right into it. You know, me and Labes are big mental health advocates. We've talked about this on the pod multiple times, had therapists on, talked about our own, journeys with it. And we think Jason is a perfect perfect voice to speak out on, a lot of the issues that we talked about from firsthand experiences and, the insight that he has. So, go ahead, Labes.
Just to jump in and say one thing, the second, we obviously had Poznansky and Tropper on. We recorded a total of, I think, 4 hours. We released the first one. We did not release the part 2, which is going to be upcoming. In that part 2, a lot of the discussion is revolving around medication and specifically rehab, which, again, the reason why we have Jason on here, and I'm pretty sure this is an open field here. That was part of why he's coming on. But Jason, obviously, he went through rehab, so just so everyone should understand why he's on specifically. He has a very specific story that he wants to share, I believe. So aside from the fact that we're friends with him, we just thought it made sense because it's kind of a follow-up. Again, we didn't release it, but just a follow-up, I think, in our minds. Shmuley, why don't you jump in?
Yeah. So, Jason, want to quickly jump in over here. A lot of times, obviously, mental health and things, it might come to a head during adult life and when responsibility takes shape. But many of us know that a lot of times it happens. Seeds are planted as a child or as a teen. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit more about I want to get a background on you on your high school, Israel, kind of your transformative years, and was there anything of interest that happened then that kind of created who you are today as a person, and what caused a lot of the issues in your life going into rehab later on.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, bro.
Good to be here.
Always, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in St. Louis. Definitely grew up in a normal home. Everyone obviously on the outside and on the inside. My parents are great people, great family, loving family. Had a lot of grandparents around, a lot of love around. I went to a co-ed school, was very happy there. My family was very modern, quote unquote, through those young years. And then, the community kind of shifted to be, more, they were bringing in Yeshiva when I was in like 6th or 7th grade. And then, I think every single person in the community started to get more religious, which is great, but it was a big adjustment for me, and I'm sure other people there, but I can only speak for myself.
Quick background: Jason, just from a small town. He's from St. Louis. We're not from New York, not from Miami, where I say he's from now, where he lives now. But just wanted to give that little background because I think it's important. Small towns oftentimes have much more pressures than New York, and New York has its own pressures, but small towns,
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So, I think, thinking back to that point in my life, I think part of what was new for everyone, me, my parents, everyone that was involved with that transition was, a yeshiva was coming in, and I didn't want to go. Like, I was very open about that with people around me, with my parents, anyone who asked, I didn't want to go. I didn't know much about it. But from what it looked like on the outside, it wasn't something that I was happy where I was.
Right.
But something that for me that really changed was that pressure, like instant pressure of like you have to be this certain way, right? And like that started for me kind of like a spiral of just questioning where I was, who I was, what was going on in my life. And the transition from I would say 7th, 8th grade, because that's when the conversation started happening with 7th, 8th grade, into yeshiva was really tough. I at the time was dating or close to dating a girl, and like I thought that was normal, right? I didn't know it wasn't okay. Didn't know it wouldn't be acceptable. All those things, and right when I got into yeshiva, like that was all of a sudden like a really, really bad thing. People started making you feel, rabbis specifically there started making me feel like I wasn't good enough or whatever you want to call it.
Right, not accepted.
You were doing a very bad thing, essentially.
Yeah, and the hard part that, kind of looking back now is like when a school of people of authority that, whether it's my parents who obviously wanted the best thing for me, that's why they sent me there. They thought it was the best, way for me to go. And as a father, I can understand that 100%. But part of what, to me, looking back on it is, if you have like people of authority and people that, parents are supposed to look to as giving your child chinuch, or that are supposed to be putting your child in a system that's supposed to be loving and caring and all that, and they're not doing that, and they're pushing something. So keep in mind, like my parents are going through a transformative part of their life too. So they didn't really know, like, hey, this isn't right, this isn't okay, right? So like I understand that now.
Right.
I didn't understand it then.
I mean, religion will do that a lot. Like, especially when parents buy into religion, like, and they go all in, and for them it could be even filling a void, and they're all of a sudden changing their whole household. Like, they've been raising their kids a certain way for the first X amount of years that this kid is in the house, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, we're becoming super frum, and you don't have a choice in this. You're also becoming super frum.
Also,
Right.
especially in a small town, and knowing for me from Cleveland, I can relate, is that there's not so many options. It's not like, oh, I can decide to not be a part of a certain community. Oh, I can go to another part of community. That community is getting right wing. I can move into another neighborhood. There's one or two neighborhoods in communities. Maybe there's 3 or 4 shuls. It's like you have a home, you have a place that you feel comfortable in, and that total comfort's taken away from you.
Correct. So there was one shul where I grew up, amazing shul. Like the rabbi there, I went to Zatzal, was amazing, but it was still a extreme transition looking back, right? And it wasn't something that I was ready for, and it wasn't something that I wanted, because I was happy where I was, and I was a good kid, right? I didn't necessarily think that I had to be in yeshiva learning X amount of hours a day. And to be honest, like, to the people I grew up with, the classmates I grew up with, I was the weird. I went from being the most popular kid in 8th grade in my school to being someone that's now in yeshiva and like couldn't really like be involved with that anymore. I wasn't able to go out with the same friends. I wasn't able to go out on a Saturday night, go bowling or whatever we did back then, because there was girls there. Like, I was specifically not allowed to do those things. So that started to, for me, started building anxiety, depression. The biggest thing for me that caused that anxiety, depression then was the relationship I had with this girl at the time. I really genuinely didn't understand what was wrong with the relationship, right? And I had rabbis being overstepping and everything.
Right. What was wrong with having the relationship?
Correct. So, like, it's not like the rabbis ever sat down and explained to me, hey, like, we don't feel this is best for you because of X, X, and X, right? They were just like, no, right? And that was like almost like, I recall, like day one. Right, it was crazy, and like part of their explanation was that like it's good for it's not good for the yeshiva to have this. So first of all, you're coming into a community that 99% of your students are coming from the same school I went to, because there was nowhere else to go.
Right.
There was one other school that was definitely more yeshivish, but most of those kids weren't coming to Chofetz Chaim; they were going somewhere else. So like that was a big adjustment, and like the adjustment they made didn't help. It really didn't. They were waiting for the kids just to, I don't know what the hell they were thinking. But
Yeah, it doesn't sound healthy at all.
no, it's like the least healthy thing possible.
One question, just for my own understanding, and maybe people listening to this. Before this new yeshiva came around, there was a Chofetz Chaim yeshiva. That's where we all are very familiar with Chofetz Chaim. Obviously, my family's entrenched in the system. But where did everyone go before that? Meaning, were there other options? Like, where did everyone go? Meaning, if they never came around, where would you have went?
Yeah, so either people were getting sent out of town. So a lot of people went to Witz. We know some people that went there.
Tons.
Or people were going to another school in St. Louis, which it was called Block Yeshiva High School.
Yeah.
Which is like definitely a more modern school.
That was our friend's father.
Yeah.
Was the
yeah,
rabbi.
was the
there.
Who's
principal
that?
there.
El Yosef's father was the principal of Block.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize
So,
that. Okay.
like, granted, like, I didn't know much about the school. I ended up going there later on for, I don't know, like a month or two. But like, it wasn't a, what we look at now, it wasn't a co-ed, high school. It certainly wasn't a yeshiva.
It was more modern Orthodox.
It was a modern Orthodox high school. That's what
And
it
your
was.
parents basically decided, hey, where we're coming from, so we're not we buy into this new hashkafa, and therefore we're now sending you and all the kids to more right-wing leaning schools.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Keep in mind, like I said, the whole community as a whole was changing. It wasn't just my parents; it was everyone.
So one question, Rabbi Winter was there for many years, right?
Correct.
So why all of a sudden did it take place then that the community started changing?
I mean, I think it was changing from when he got there. Like he was always a very growth oriented person, and he lived what he preached.
Right.
He wasn't one of those rabbis that just preach and you can tell doesn't live what he says.
Right.
Like he believed and
He's authentic.
He was authentic, which is the only reason that I connected so much to
Right.
Judaism and the religion is because of him.
Right,
Because I was
right.
able to see that at such a young age, and it was amazing. But that growth I think the community, because I would say 95% of where I grew up is Baal Tshuva. And he brought everyone from zero to where they are now, which now the community is, much different than when
Right.
I grew up.
Sounds
Right?
like a very unique individual.
Yeah, it was amazing. So,
Yeah.
part of that though is that transition isn't always easy, especially on kids and especially on people.
And it
kids
doesn't
that-
sound
that-
like the. Go ahead.
especially on kids that don't necessarily want that, because I was still, part of something that's very important on my journey is that I was still a genuine kid who wanted to grow and be closer to God.
Right. They stripped away all the things that were good about Jason Rosenblum, and they dialed it up to certain little actions that they didn't necessarily agree with, which was either having a girlfriend or whatever it was at the time. And instead of taking the good parts of what Jason Rosenblum was and seeing a kid that wanted to genuinely connect to Judaism, they saw a person that was not doing the exact actions they wanted the person to do at 13, 14, 15 years old, and demonized him.
I mean, again, this is not...
Essentially.
Is what he's saying somewhat accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, so what you're describing to me from my perception is, first of all, not shocking at all. At all. It makes total sense. And what I really empathize with is just thinking about myself or even you at 7th and 8th grade, or even you, Shmuel, in 7th and 8th grade, coming up and growing up in that world, and all of a sudden being told, hey, by the way, your best friend, the 9 girls you're best friends with, you're not going to be able to speak to them anymore, and you're going to this yeshiva, and you have to be up at 6:40 Shachris and do night Seder twice a week till 10 o'clock. And I'd just be like, I just want to go to the Cardinals games.
Right.
Like, I just want to see Albert Pujols
Right,
crush
exactly.
500-foot home runs.
Yeah,
Leave me
so-
alone.
Yeah.
And my parents definitely tried to cater to the adjustment, for sure. It wasn't like they cut everything off, but the big things that everyone cut off, it wasn't just my parents, it was the school mostly, but like it was girls, it was all these things it was girls, it was most of my friends, because they were all hanging out with girls whenever we were hanging out, and it was also like everyone wanted me to conform to the system, and I didn't want that. I didn't see,
Right.
from like I said, from day one, it was a negative, connotation really from walking the door. And I didn't want to be there. So like that also sits on me, right? Like I didn't want to be there. I went in there not wanting to be there.
don't
But
think
they
that's-
certainly didn't make an effort.
They didn't make an
to
effort.
keep me there.
Right.
Okay,
For you to feel loved.
I don't want to
Yeah.
belabor this point too much, but I don't think it's on you. But that's a different thing.
But
I
I want to.
but
Yeah.
My point is that like, it wasn't like I went in there with a
Open mind.
completely open mind.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but you're a kid, so
Exactly.
at the end of the day, it's on them to show you that this is something that is going to bring you joy.
which they didn't.
Which
And
they
work
didn't.
with you at a significantly slower pace than it sounded
But
like.
during this time, that during this tough transformative time, were there people in your life, anyone that you can go to, that you were able to combine it, that you were able to talk to and tell what was going on, and and what symptoms were you feeling? Were there like anxiety symptoms that you can look back on then that you were feeling really then, or depression or things of that nature that you saw like as maybe like when a 14, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, I can tell you myself is that when I was like in 10th, 11th grade, even like times like that, I wasn't necessarily a happy kid, and there were times looking back that I was sleeping a lot and I was doing a lot of stuff that I wasn't engaging with myself. I was sometimes people pleasing to the point where I felt bad about myself because I was just trying to please the community or please people in my yeshiva. And can you look back at yourself now and see yourself back then and be like, wow, that's, all those things were going on. And when you had all those things going on, did you have someone you could talk to about it?
Yeah, so, to first address when you said the symptoms of what was coming up, right? So,
Yeah.
it was constant anxiety, constant depression, and I knew it. I knew something was up. Therapy at that point, maybe it was everyone's life, for sure mine, wasn't really talked about. But I definitely, there was so much going on. Every time I was called into a rabbi's office to talk about the situation that was going on, whether it was with this girl or the yeshiva, whichever one, it was just brutal. Like I didn't want to wake up and go to that.
Your heart just dropped.
Yeah, every morning I woke up, I just felt like I don't want to be here right now.
Wow.
Right. So, did I have anyone that I could really go to? Like, of course I have my parents, and they're always like they wanted to hear what I was going through, and I tried. But at the same time, like, the way that it was being, because who do they go to for guidance, right? Like they would talk to the rabbis at the school about it. And,
you didn't really feel heard. It's like
yeah, correct. Like I didn't feel like I can really confide in anyone without the result being, well, we're going to make this work for you.
Exactly. They're just basically, it was basically you must conform to what they want. And that's like Shmuley said, they didn't really give a damn about you and what you cared about in any way. It was just like, we're gonna force you to do A, B, and C, so you realize the results. You just need to get a little older, and then you'll see how we're right. Like that type of concept. Like, does that make like?
Yeah,
right?
you're definitely in very close.
You know what I'm saying?
Like, it definitely had, there was
everything had an agenda.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally see this. Sorry for interrupting. I could totally see this playing itself out, like. Your father calling them up and be like, Jason doesn't want them, and them like discussing their basic, like, trust me, this is the best thing for him, and if we just make him do this, he'll see when he's in first year base medrash how what we did was the right thing, Right. And it's like, no, you're missing the boat.
Correct. So obviously I was never there for the phone calls between my parents and the rabbis, but what I will tell you is that the rabbis never actually made an effort to make it work for me. They just wanted me to conform to it, or it was their way or kind of no way, and that transpired obviously when you have, parents that are also transitioning into. No one knew what yeshiva was in St. Louis until they came. So we're really going based off their example, and they stunk, like freaking horrible. So to this day, it's like I don't even understand how like they were put into a position to deal with kids that were transitioning like we were.
Right.
And a lot of people left. I mean, not that many people, because a lot of people like conformed to it because that's maybe what they wanted or whatever. But there's a lot of people pleasing going on. It affected me when I walked into shul because the yeshiva was in the shul, so like there was no separation between at least growing up. Like I enjoyed going to shul because I had my friends there, I had the community there, and then that kind of changed for me. So like I never really felt safe, to answer your question.
Got it. Now, how did you cope?
I mean,
at that point in your life,
at that point in my life, the only thing that I coped with was that relationship. That was it. Right, so
she was the person that was basically hearing you at that time.
She was the person hearing me, and
were you confiding in her too?
Oh yeah, as much as I was able to. Right?
Got it.
Because my contact with her was extremely limited by the control that was inputted by the school, and that was transpired into the home. Obviously.
So funny. It's such a catch-22. The person that you were, the thing that was making everyone else so much controlling of you and so unaccepting of you was the thing that you needed in order to survive. It's so that
wow. And it's like
that creates such a tornado of just confusion.
The even crazier tornado is like the one person we can actually go and speak to, his parents, his father, his mother,
are all going back to the yeshiva because they're the ones asking them for advice.
That don't get it, that are not letting him speak. It's just like a one.
I can see how much of a just.
It was tough because I'm a father. I have 2 kids, right?
Right.
And like I can totally understand the perspective my parents were coming from. Obviously, like if I could go back in time and if they could go back in time, I guarantee you they would do things different. And obviously, but it was a learning process for everyone involved. But when you have people of authority that you're supposed to trust, like do your damn job, right? And if you can't do your damn job, you shouldn't be in the position to do it. So that's part of where it comes down to is they didn't do that. Not one rabbi in that entire place.
I just want to say one thing. I agree with obviously everything 1,000,000% that you're saying. I think that this really comes down to, I mean, I don't want to belabor too much, but I think it really comes down to just basic chinuch principles 101, which, again, it only started changing in the last 10 years that people actually started understanding basic chinuch and like that a kid's feelings and opinion actually matter, so don't just like force them into doing something. And again, I know these Chavetz Chaim guys that come out, they don't know their head from their ass straight up about chinuch. They don't know anything. They know how to learn, Yoredea and Shulchan Aruch, but that's where it starts and ends. So for 99% of them. Now you have the unique ones, I'm sure that maybe even you that were, pretty good already off the bat and more sensitive and caring and, weren't as black and white or were more nuanced.
Yeah, I would say it's 90%. I would say
Whatever. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, I'm black and white. So yeah, it's not 99%.
No, there's. I think it's an important point to make because there are a lot of. There are 10%. There are Chavetz Chaim guys that are good. They do a good job.
But again, that's not because of the yeshiva.
That's because of the guy. Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. I agree.
Right. Like in the St. Louis yeshiva when it first started, there was no one like that.
Right.
It was 100%. Right. And I'm only speaking from my experience. Can't speak for other people, but from my experience, that's how it was. That's how I viewed it, and there was no effort to make that better. So, that transpired into a crazy amount of anxiety, depression, and the way I tried to cope with it
at that time
was the relationship. I had one person that wasn't involved with the yeshiva who was actually involved with NCSY. He was the only person that I could confide in. And I did. Like, me and him went out every Sunday, and I just I basically cried to him for help, right? And he did his best. Like, one point he made to me, which was, I still remember it, and I think I was maybe 9th grade, 10th grade, he said that, the more the yeshiva pulls you away from her, they're actually just making you guys, like, closer.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And it was 100% true. Like, I'm 100% confident that if they would not have got involved, that relationship would have ended relatively quickly. Right, because we didn't have that. Like, I mean, or maybe not. I don't know. But like, my gut says that that's the case because so much drama and
so much of the holding on was the fact that you were told to let go.
The relationship survived based on the fact that it was almost like, again, what's not allowed to be done becomes much more exciting.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that I say that it may not have ended quicker is just because I needed that emotional person to just trust and whatever. But regardless, it wouldn't have been such a traumatic. Turmoil in my life,
right?
And it was, and that turmoil in that relationship continued for years.
Right, and that's a good point you're making. And now is that I wanted to talk about how it ended up transforming into your Israel years and then your college years too, because I knew you when you came into college, and I can only speak a little. I can't speak to like what you're talking about now, but I can definitely speak to the college part of yourself. And I want to hear a little bit actually about Israel and your college years and things of that nature, and how not being heard as a teenager and not being at all validated and only for the most part being fought with and demonized, what that created for you as an 18, 19, 20-year-old now that you're going out into the world and you're trying to make something as an adult of yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. So like, what I just summarized was basically 9th and 10th grade. Right. So going on to 11th grade, I got kicked out of the school for other things. Not happened to be. It was most likely just a conjunction of like everything that was going on. And there was a situation with like 4 people, and they kicked out me and one other person. It was the happiest day of my life when they kicked me out. I mean, it was emotional. And it wasn't easy to see my parents, suffering through that. But I was like inside, like I was ready to leave anyway. Like it was just at the point where it wasn't.
That's a weird question. You're a twin, right?
Yeah.
So your twin was in the yeshiva also?
Yeah.
Did they kick him out or no?
No.
So he got okay.
Yeah, he wasn't involved with what I was doing.
I got it. No, I got it. That was just an interesting perspective I'm thinking about now because I happen to know you're a twin, that's also just interesting. Can you imagine?
Yeah, they're very different people though.
I know there's very different. I got that much. I know. I don't know.
Now we're pretty similar.
Again,
you guys are much more. You guys have grown
closer.
Towards, yeah.
But I don't know Jordan well, so I'm not claiming to know him. I'm just saying. It's so weird. It's like, I don't know. To me, I just think that's funny.
You guys got cool names, though. Jordan and Jason. You guys got good names.
We did.
My parents screwed that one up.
Your parents screwed the pooch on that one. Label Wiener.
First name and last name.
Yeah.
Just horrendous.
Can't change that, buddy. But,
butchered that.
And so as I went on, 11th grade, I got kicked out of the school. I went to block for a little bit. I didn't feel like I was able to accept myself in block because of all the pressures that were going on around me. And I was still, to be honest, I was miserable, like inside, and I was masking that very well. My parents probably knew, and I didn't mask it perfectly because like there's only so much pain you can hide.
Right.
But I was in a lot of pain. As I got, I went to Chavetz Chaim in Miami for 11th and 12th, end of 11th and 12th grade. It was definitely a lot better. I started to really understand that there are good rabbis out there,
right?
But it kept me in the system, right? So like in Israel, I stayed in the yeshiva system when I really most likely should not have, and once I would say like throughout this time, like I started when I was drinking in high school, like it got to the point where like I couldn't just have 5 drinks, right? Like it was 10, 15 drinks, and like risky behavior along with that. Like, whether it's taking something that was somebody put in my drink, that happened a couple times, once, thank God. But, I started to really engage in behavior that there was no moderation, and it was just anything to cover the pain, right? So like, I would say, like, addiction is a disease. People don't really talk about that. They think it's a choice, and it's not a choice. It's the same thing as a cancer. It's the same thing as diabetes. Whatever it's going to be, it's just a matter of how progressive it's going to get, right? So anyone watching this that thinks that your kid or your friend is choosing to use drugs, it's not a choice. Like, never will be, never has been. It's a disease. It's a progressive disease, and it will kill you if you don't address it. We'll get to that. But like, so for me, that's when I think the substance abuse started, which was probably 9th, 10th, 11th grade, when I was really drinking a lot, like every kiddish, every opportunity I had. I wasn't 21, I couldn't go to a bar, but any time that I had the opportunity to drink, it wasn't just 1, 2, 3 drinks. Granted, like, teenagers are teenagers, but I was different. Like, I started smoking cigarettes, and I was smoking a lot. Like, it was just constant, like, behaviors that just weren't, it was I needed this girl. I needed, I didn't need the alcohol. I don't define it in high school that I needed it, but I took it.
Right. And what I just want to elaborate is that when you say it's not a choice, it's once you've made, meaning you have the choice to engage in that behavior originally, but once you get the taste of the cherry, right, at that point, you don't have the ability to then just stop. Once you engage in the addictive behavior at any point in the behavior, that behavior now becomes something that you can control to decide that I really want that behavior or don't want that behavior, can control that behavior when I start doing it.
To a degree, I agree with you.
Sorry for interrupting, just to expound on this question, because I think it's a very important point. I'm of the belief, and you could argue with me right here for sure, but that everyone has bechira, if you will, that, right, the choice in their life to make a decision. Now, there's a lot of people, let's say, when they're in tremendous emotional pain, that making the right choice is next to impossible, and almost, 90s, meaning, let's say someone was sexually molested when they were a kid. So now, when they're 15 and going through tremendous emotional pain, but they haven't ever picked up alcohol yet, do they have the choice on whether or not to drink and mask that pain? I would say they still have the choice. Now, could I do any better in their shoes? Likely not. But again, it's an important point. It could sound like I'm splitting hairs, but to me, this is a very important.
Right, and I hear what you're saying. I think what my point is that not that person doesn't have the choice to medicate their feelings. Medicating your feelings and being a drug addict or an alcoholic are two different things, right? So like, if somebody, most kids in yeshiva drink, just something that's normal, right? Not all of them end up being alcoholics, right? Not all of them, a lot of people smoke weed. Not all of them end up being drug addicts. My point is that your brain chemistry is going to start moving once you start doing those things. So I don't think it's necessarily like anyone's going to drink. Right, most teenagers are going to drink, but when the chemicals in your brain
if
start
you're about
moving,
to drink, let's pick heroin. Heroin's a good example.
No, right? So no one's going to pick up.
That's not standard.
Right.
Meaning,
okay, so most addicts aren't going to pick up heroin the first time.
So I think we're agreeing. What I mean by that is as follows: we're agreeing that not everyone's an addict. Meaning not everyone has brain chemistry is going to change, meaning there's a person that can have 3 drinks and can always have those 3 drinks and continue drinking the rest of their life and be always in moderation because they don't have that addictive chemical imbalance in their brain. What you're saying, Jason, is that there is people that are addicts, people that that do have that progressive addictive imbalance in their brain, let's call it, right, that chemical imbalance, when they do pick something up, they will eventually become addicted to it. That's not a choice.
The first time they pick it up, they lose their ability.
Right,
now,
correct.
You could choose to get help with it. That's a big difference. But when you're that young, you're usually not choosing to.
Right.
There are ask you a very interesting question, just to pick your brain. Do you think you would have become, if you didn't have, you clearly had a very, very difficult, I don't know what I want to call it childhood, but for sure, later adolescent / young teen years, right? With all this transition and all this chaos going on, I would go crazy if I was in your shoes. I could only imagine that. My question is, if you didn't have that heartache and that emotional pain, do you think you would become an addict? Do you think you'd be an addict anyways?
Most likely in some, I may have not resorted to covering the pains, the drastic downfall that happened may have not happened as quickly, but I certainly think I would be there. Eventually, in some way, whether that's will work, Not everyone. When I say addict, I don't mean just drugs. I mean it could be work, it could be sex, it could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be anything. It could be working out, it could be anything, right? So like I definitely had the tendencies to be there. No, I think that the trauma that I have from that time in my life certainly, fast tracked the downfall that I had.
I mean, just to expound, what I think it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, but like to me, what causes again, certain people have certain personalities, right? To have addictive personalities. Like I have a very addictive personality. I start something, I'm either all in or all out. If I start smoking, I'm smoking a pack. That's how I work, right? There's no in between for me. I think there are certain people that very much have that. My only question would be that I just feel a lot of times we're using whatever it is because we're so emotionally dysregulated and in emotional pain that we're using all these things as a means of escape, right? So,
correct.
In theory, if we got rid of the emotional pain and let's pretend it never existed, our inclination to need to use essentially
Our inclination for escape.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Would probably be significantly less.
Correct. Like the action would be significantly less harmful, right? Like everyone wants to escape. You want to escape.
Right,
Everybody, watching TV at night is escaping, right? So
Right.
it's like
the addiction is the
pain that I had that I was going through caused the more extreme measures that I went to cover the pain.
Right.
And yes, so you have people that
The other
will
things-
go through hard
right.
things and drink and smoke weed and eventually will
Also,
be able
it's-
to stop that. That's the key. It's like-
also, if you didn't go through the emotional pain, you were still an addict. Let's say you became a work addict when you were older, or you became other addicts. There are addicts that you can function. It's an addictive types of things in life that you can still function in your life with.
Right.
Meaning, it's possible you can have a marriage.
Be a functional
you
addict.
You can be a functional addict,
Yeah.
and you can be doing things that are a functional addict. Right? It can be work. It can even be sex if you get help for that, or different things like that. Things that won't necessarily kill you if you overuse, right? Alcohol, drugs, things like that. Those are the two things that will kill you if you overuse, right? Other things that won't necessarily kill you unless you do risky behaviors in order to get there, like sex. If you're doing risky behavior in order to go get that sex, then yes, right?
Your chances of getting AIDS will be significant.
Right. But even beyond that, what I would be talking about would be like, let's say getting up 3:30 in the morning after an hour of sleeping because you want to go have sex with somebody, and you go and you drive in your car 3 hours on a highway 95 miles an hour because you want that sex. There'll be a risky behavior in order to go get sex, go see a prostitute, right? What I'm saying is that your addictive personality would never have changed, but you might have not been using things in order to escape that were so dangerous to your life.
I'm just asking just to get a better understanding. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone's going to face some pain in their life. So at the end of the day, if you have an addictive personality, which I think what Jason is saying is that there are certain people that have a chemical makeup that they have more of an addictive personality by nature.
Yep.
So they're going to face that, and maybe that hardship will come when they're 32 or 3 kids, and now they're totally not present and just working 19 hours a day.
Right. So continue from where we were. So 11th, 12th grade, that was kind of what was going on in terms of substance abuse. And then as I went to Israel after 12th grade, and that was the first time where it was really okay. Like now it's open season. With the drinks, everything was open season, right? So like, it just became like
lulz.
Exactly. So it just became like you can do what you want now, right? And the thing with me back then was there was no limit. Like it was just getting messed up after getting messed up. Like so one night I would get really messed up, and then the next night I would have to get more messed up just to keep that cycle going. It was just a complete downfall, right? And that continued, right? Like so I wasn't using drugs consistently. I was drinking almost every day, but I wasn't like waking up and drinking. I was justifying that by going out with my friends and partying. I wasn't going to the bar by myself, and like everyone who goes to Israel thinks like, okay, like everyone says you party until January time, and then you get more serious and you stop. I didn't stop. Like I just went the whole year. Like
I can see that.
Yeah, you could definitely.
The rabbis come into your room.
Yeah,
it's the end of January. Like, okay, Jason, it's time. You're like, nope, I'm not finished yet.
Pesach time, I told my parents, hey, I think I'm gonna go back for year 2. They're like, yeah, no shit, you're not going back for year 2. So like that's kind of like what started going on, and then I went to and keep in mind like the same things were continuing. The depression, the anxiety was just building and getting worse because it wasn't being addressed. Right. And my will to fight it, that was the only thing that was getting a little bit stronger, was I didn't want to just be like this the rest of my life. I genuinely thought that this is what life is. Like I thought that I'm going to be depressed the rest of my life. I'm going to be anxious the rest of my life. I'm not going to be happy ever. That's what I. That's
I'm
what
just
I
going to
felt
be
like.
miserable.
Can I ask you a question? Were there any rabbis or mentors that you came in contact with at any point during your let's call it yeshiva years, up till Landers or college, that picked up on this a little bit and you feel like understood what was actually going on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone was able, at least what's been communicated to me up to now, I don't think anyone thought like, yo, you're an addict. Like, you got to watch yourself. No, I don't think anyone had that insight. But there was definitely rabbis, in Miami, Rabbi Brigida and Rabbi Schloss, that were much more open and understood that I was in pain. And they loved me for me. They didn't love me for who I was. They wanted me to be. They didn't, they accepted who I was. And that
Great
was
point.
that was a great time. It wasn't a emotionally peaceful time. It was very hard still because I was still going through. Nothing changed, on the inside. Besides for feeling like, okay, like maybe there's something to strive for. But the way that I strive for was, okay, I have to learn more. I have to daven more.
But at least you're able to be yourself a little bit around them.
Correct.
And didn't have to necessarily hide everything that
I didn't have to
Jason
hide in a
is.
corner.
Right.
Like I was able to talk about like I remember I think it was Rabbi Brigida said to me, you look like you have the world on your shoulders, which is how I felt, but at least somebody could see it, right? So like as I transitioned into Israel, that, like I said, it was just a downfall. The relationship was just a mess in Israel, right? Because of my behavior and whatever else was going on, and the drinking was definitely like, probably above what it should have been for like just having a year to yourself in a country that drinking is legal. It was more, definitely like some dangerous things happened there for sure. And then, as I transitioned into, I went to yeshiva 2 more months after Israel, and then I was like, I'm done, right? And I went to Landers.
Then you met moi.
That's where I met you.
So during this phase, up from let's say ninth grade to let's say Landers, you're doing what? Just a lot of drinking, and weed.
A lot of drinking, emotional codependence in their relationship, and I smoked weed one time in high school.
One time in high school.
Weed-
So when did you start doing weed?
Weed started in Lander, really.
Correct. So weed, I think, started like
He met me.
I met you. I definitely smoked weed
But you-
before.
but you-
No, I didn't smoke. I didn't smoke weed really in Lander at
No,
all.
you didn't. No.
I first smoked like after we were roommates. I didn't even smoke when we were roommates.
I think the first time we smoked, we went
I
together.
was together. I think the first time we smoked was when our friend was living in our place. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you I mean, it was definitely wasn't. I don't remember smoking with you, but
No.
So
I remember drinking with you.
Absolutely
And
remember that.
and when we would drink, you wouldn't only drink. Sometimes you would smoke. I was too afraid to smoke. I was a pansy.
Right.
But I would drink, and I would drink a shice ton with you guys. But you guys would drink, smoke, and also even sometimes pop Xannies with it and things of that
so
nature.
we'll start with that. So,
But
yeah. So drinking and weed was pretty quick once I got to Landers.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with Landers. I was just being more like.
No, it was more access to it.
More access
There was
to
more
it.
access.
So-
The person on top of us, I remember the guy living on top of us was Mr. Weed, who's weed money.
He was Mr. Weed.
He was Mr. Weed.
Yeah. So
great guy.
Yeah. Great.
Getting
guy.
married tomorrow, actually.
Nice. Congratulations, man. So like, it just came to like, that started progressively getting, more consistent. My behavior at the bars was definitely more consistent. That was very unhealthy what I was doing. And the emotional pain was just growing.
Right.
So there was a lot of people around me that were doing, harder drugs like, Oxy,
Yeah, I remember.
Xanax, and Xanax. I dabbled here and there up to this
Right.
point, but I started to take Xanax because I thought that that's what would help my anxiety. Genuinely, that's what I thought, and I didn't. To this day, I don't think I ever got specifically high off of Xanax, but I was definitely mixing it with like alcohol, which is so freaking stupid.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But like, to numb the pain. That's where it started, was numbing pain, right? And I didn't really pick up an Oxy until there was one Shabbos that we had in Landers where I had a massive toothache.
Yeah, I remember
don't know if
that.
you remember that, but
Yeah,
it was really freaking bad.
It was crazy.
Yeah, so like I woke up and it was just immense pain, and I just like, screw this, like I need pills, right? And like I got some.
Went to urgent care or whatever.
Yeah, I went to urgent
I
care,
remember that.
got some pills, and I remember like taking them.
Also, not to cut you off, but I think I remember that one of our friends had muscle relaxers.
One of our friends had
Also,
muscle relaxers,
right?
and,
I remember that he had
and-
back pain.
and oxy. So I
That's
believe,
who it was.
Yeah. So
he had
I
muscle
got-
relaxers.
'cause-
He gave you some of those muscle
Right,
relaxers.
he gave me
also.
both because it was on Shabbos. I remember I didn't go to urgent care till after
Remember
Shabbos.
that.
But regardless, is I took the I think it was 2 or 3 pills and with the shot because that's what the person told me to do. Genius, right? And I mean,
No
what's the
way.
difference
He
between?
told you to do that?
Yeah, what's the difference
Wow.
between Xanax drinking and Oxy drinking? I didn't freaking know. Whatever, it is what it is. So I took those pills and all of a sudden I remember walking from our apartment to the meal at Landers. I was like, holy shit! This is amazing. This is unbelievable.
You feel nothing.
I just felt all my. It wasn't like I was on a. I mean, I was on a cloud, but I wasn't just sitting there whoa. I was more all my emotion, everything's
you
gone.
felt zero emotional pain.
Everything's gone. I actually could smile and not feel, because every time up to that point I smiled, I felt empty inside. Now I didn't. I didn't feel necessarily happy,
Right.
but I didn't feel bad. So then I was I just pretty much just figured out my life. This is all I need. I just need to take these
Right,
pills.
you're always a fun guy in Atlanta. When we first came in, we knew we were going to be best friends. We loved women. We loved drinking.
Absolutely.
We loved sports. We were just classic guys. We were 20, 21-year-old guys, and we were we looked at each other we're going to be best friends. But I did see you weren't always the happiest. You weren't an upset person. You were just a little bit. You were lethargic
Yeah,
as a person.
You know what this really gets into, and I just want to jump in and say one thing. This really gets into so many people. Jason, from what we know of Jason, from what I always remember of you, and again, I was your shadchan, so to me, you were just a good guy. But
Yeah.
what it really, and you're a great guy. I still believe that. It's not like anything changed in my mind. But what it really goes to show you is that there's so many great guys that are suffering silently that people just do not realize.
You have no clue.
Like-
I lived with you every single day, 24 hours in Lander and it took even me, and obviously took me. I was 20, 21 years old. I didn't know what it looked like for other people to be in pain, and I was in pain myself at that point. But if I was an in tune human being, even looking at you on a daily basis, even if I wasn't an in tune human being, I'd have to be a top therapist to be that guy's in real pain. You were able to mask it pretty well. You went to class, you did your thing. Yeah, you woke up at 1 or 2 p.m. every day the same way I did, the same way every college kid does that's not interested in their lives or not interested in whatever courses they're taking or doesn't know what they want to do with their life. Big deal. You woke up, you studied for your test, you went, you either failed or you didn't fail it, and you just checked the cardinal score.
I failed. Most likely. But yeah, I mean, 100%. I was too scared because of what happened, with the schools and the way that transpired. I was too scared to voice how I was feeling to anyone, including my friends. Right? There was maybe 1 or 2 people, and I'm still close with them, very close with them now, that I did voice it to, and they were also in yeshiva. They didn't know what. We weren't exposed to addiction and substance abuse and as much mental health as they are now because they're much older now. So
let's go back to that first time that you used the Oxy. You were telling that story.
So the first time I used the Oxy, I literally felt like I just solved my problem. I was so freaking happy. I was like, whoa, this is amazing. I can just do this every day and I'll be fine.
Right.
And I didn't know that. I genuinely did not know that it's a drug that can kill me. I knew that I shouldn't be doing this because I'm not an idiot, but I didn't really know that what it was gonna lead.
You knew
to.
that drugs are drugs. It's you're
I didn't really know that what I was doing was necessarily bad. I didn't think it was gonna progress into.
You
what
didn't
it did.
You didn't see yourself on the news as the person that took 60, 70, 80 Oxy.
I mean, at that point, I didn't do that.
Correct.
But,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
you don't know at that point. You think you're just taking 2 or 4 or 1 or 2, whatever. You're
So,
I just need to be in a decent place.
So that Saturday night. So again, that was Shabbos. That Saturday night, I got more pills because I was justifiably in pain. Right. Right. But it wasn't just about the pain. I was fiending for them. I remember I was like, oh my God, I need these now.
Right.
And I got them. And then I took off, went back to St. Louis because I had to see the specific doctor there to get fixed. And that's when I knew, whoa, I figured it out, and
you figured out the solution to my problems.
Yeah, and the progression from there was just brutal. Right, I don't know if you remember how I looked back then.
Yeah,
I wasn't
that.
I was definitely not. I've never been overweight. Because I didn't eat much because I was so anxious and depressed all the time. But
all you did was you ordered sandwich bar Chinese and eat half of it.
Exactly.
And I would eat the other half.
Exactly. So I started to progressively lose weight. And I still wasn't dating my wife at the time, not yet. And it was progressing pretty quickly. the addictive behavior and the drugs. Like it just became my MO, right? Like that was it.
Yeah, I
Like,
remember.
I would have a day at school, wake up at whatever, and go to class, come back and use, right? Like,
Right.
and that's all I cared about. Like that was it at that point. So, then we go on and obviously Label made my shidduch and he worked for that one. So, yeah.
That I can say I did.
Yeah. So he worked for that one. He worked to make it
Still
happen.
waiting for my check.
So
Hey!
shots fired.
He went there.
You went there.
So like that, I got married and it was tough in the beginning. Obviously it was tough for a long time in the beginning there because I wasn't myself.
Right, you're marrying someone in your lowest spot of life at that point.
Literally lowest spot. Like I was,
Most
that was,
desperate spot,
That was
most
the only,
vulnerable spot.
Yeah, because I thought that relationship, I thought that at the time, I thought marriage would solve everything.
Right.
Right, because I didn't know any better.
You thought that emotional hole
Yeah.
that you had was going to get filled right there.
For sure, and I had people, more than less. My dad was always telling me that that's not, more. My dad said that's not going to work. Be careful what you're doing.
Right.
And he was right, but
He's right, but at that point you're
it was toast. It was done.
you're an atheist and a fox. So what are you supposed to do?
So,
Right.
so I have obviously it was the best decision I ever made.
You're
now.
a what?
An atheist and a foxhole.
Never
He's
heard
like,
that before.
I never
atheist,
heard that.
I'm not sure if I didn't use it properly in this term, but I sort of did.
An
The term-
atheist in a foxhole?
Yeah, meaning all atheists in a foxhole believe there's a God. Meaning when an atheist is their back against the wall and they have no options, all of a sudden they're
Interesting.
crying out.
I never heard that,
God
but-
help me,
no,
God
got
help me.
it,
So I'm
right.
saying in this situation, like you're
Got
asking
it.
him not to. So it's not the perfect way of using it.
Got it.
But
No, I've
my
heard
point-
foxhole lines and atheist lines. I never heard the atheist in a
The
foxhole.
line is there's no atheist in a foxhole.
There's no atheist. Oh, there's no atheist in a foxhole because they're all calling out for God because they don't
Correct.
want to die. I got you. I got you.
That's the line.
So-
Got you.
So I'm just saying that when you put a guy like him in his position at 22 years old and tell him,
Right.
you really shouldn't get married, by the way, because you're doing it for the wrong reason. Yeah, good luck. The guy is
Right.
depressed for 7 years. He just wants someone who loves
Right.
him.
Exactly. So, obviously looking back, I got extremely lucky with, the shidduch that Label made with my wife because most girls would not put up with what my wife has put up with.
Can I just talk about my amazing shit for a second?
No, no.
Do I have the right to pat myself on the back?
No, we
Hold on a second, everyone.
He has 2 kids.
Pat.
Aside from the fact that Jason
We
now has 2
pat.
beautiful children, may I say, the most adorable in the world.
Also, we have a great spot sometimes to go down to in Florida.
That too, but aside from all those things, and me not hesitating to call up his mother-in-law and be like, I need a place for the week. But aside from all that stuff, he was in Miami. She wasn't from Miami. You were Jason in
St.
St.
Louis.
Louis. So in my opinion, that's
Pat.
some street cred. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I rember when
We'll get you on a after shadchan.
That's what I'm saying. No, I mean, I had this whole thing with Lisa Ellen, and some people know. For basically, quite honestly, I was shitting on her for various different things, just to say it as it was. And I'm just saying, it's not like I haven't, executed in this field. I've executed, in my opinion, on a high level. So,
Yeah, absolutely, you have absolutely.
Jordan's
have.
first ring, and he's not going to stop.
And like it. I remember when you called me to go out with my wife. You're like, go out with her tonight, and I'm like, no freaking way. First of all,
I remember-
I don't know if I was high, but I was obviously like either coming off of something or continuing to I was watching Chicago Fire. Shout out, great show. I think you
Great
called
show,
that one.
Sophia Bush.
Yeah, there
Let's
we go.
go.
Let's go. So,
she is.
she's fire. So like
That raspy voice.
Yes.
That raspy voice will get me every time.
Yeah, so-
she also has such a cute smile. And then we're just keep going,
Yeah,
keep
so-
going. We're single, Jason. You're married.
I know.
We need things to talk about.
So he was like, Label told me, go out with her,
Yeah.
go out with her tonight, or she's not going out with you.
Oh, this was actually a great.
And I was like, I don't even know what this girl looks like. Like, I'm not going out. And he sends me a picture. I'm like, okay, I'll go out with her right now.
So here's what happened.
Yeah.
So I am a salesman. I know people's flaws, and
Yeah.
Jason is as straight as they get. So
Yeah.
he loves women. Let's just call it what it is.
Absolutely.
This is when we were 21 years old. I still remember.
Yeah.
So
But,
he's like,
like-
you're like, oh, I'm not really dating. I'm sort of dating. I have to speak with my parents. Blah blah blah. And you know me. I'm coming from a place where like
you came over also, I remember.
I'm coming from a place where
Yeah.
again
We sat on the porch together. I
I'm the
remember.
crazy kid who like left my house at like 16. So like to me it was like ask your parents. I'm like get the hell out of here. You don't have to ask your parents. Like just go out. And and she happened to be in town. That's basically
Right.
what happened.
Yeah,
and she's like, I told her I'm like he needs to speak with his parents first. And she's like, she told me, I remember this. She's like, and I remember where I was. I remember I was still working in Austin there.
Yeah.
And I remember her telling me if I'm here for 2 nights, if he needs to speak to his parents about this, I'm not interested in dating him.
Yeah.
So I just relayed that.
Which was the best decision she ever made. Right? So, it just came down to like, I obviously when I saw her, I was like, okay, I'm going out with her. A, because she was smoke show. And then B was like, just because, I saw that she was genuine. Like I could tell that right away. So I was like, okay, like let's do it. And, so obviously like went out, everything was like the core of a person that I wanted was there, that I knew. Like 100%, no doubt after like 2 or 3 dates. Like I was like, that's the core of the person I want to be with is here. Right? I consider myself 1% of like 99% of people were not like me. Right? And that 1% being an extremely deep person and an extremely genuine person. That much I knew about myself. Now I didn't equate all of that to the pain I went through, of course. But like, now I can. Now I can understand why I felt that way. Right? So obviously like when we got married, like, right before I got married at my Aufruf, you guys were both there, it was crazy.
Yeah, that was
absolutely
nuts
insane.
Time. I woke up on a golf course.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was a fun weekend.
That was crazy.
The best part about
I got
that
free
weekend,
heat tickets, a free flow ride at concert.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Shout out.
Shout out.
Wherever you are right now.
Wherever you are right now. Shout out.
So like, so the crazy part about that, and this is truly how the addict brain thinks, right? Like my Aufruf was right after Purim. And I told myself, I'm not drinking Purim because I'm getting married on Sunday. Purim was Wednesday, Thursday.
I remember.
My was Friday, Shabbos, obviously. So like I was like, I'm not drinking on Purim because I'm getting married on Monday or Sunday, right? And yeah, that I didn't drink on Purim, but I got absolutely obliterated.
Twisted at your Aufruf.
I embarrassed my family, honestly. Like, thank God my in-laws weren't there because, like, who knows? But, like,
Well, you made your friends proud.
I mean, my friends proud with the exception of one who, I still regret that to this day.
Oh, man.
I love him to death, but, like, I didn't give him the best introduction. And I regret that. But
I forgot.
You forgot.
Don't even go into
yeah, we won't go into
That
it. But, like,
was-
it was like everything that I did, it was to the extreme. There was no moderation there. So, I was absolutely wrecked the whole Shabbos, and I woke up the day of my wedding throwing up, right? And like that's not where you want to be. There's just not. You don't want to be in that mental space to the day of your wedding to do that. Now, like as I got married and my addiction progressed, like obviously my marriage suffered from that, and
How exactly did it suffer?
Well, I just wasn't able to be there, like I wasn't able to be there emotionally. When you first get married, like everyone talks about like, oh, Shana Rishona, you're supposed to be like all this joyous, like happy, la la la. Like when you have two real people that aren't necessarily in their best place, like that's not gonna happen.
Right.
And
That's
like,
a lot of
to be
turmoil.
To not be able to be there for that
When you
person.
say be there, is the word be present? And like
Be present emotionally, be present really physically as well. Like
You were
just
out.
to sit down next to the person, like put your arm around them and be like, you could talk to me. Like, I never did that.
Right.
Because all I cared about was quickly dealing with her needs so that I can go use.
Right.
I can step out on the porch, smoke
Right.
a fat bowl, and pop some pills. Like that's all I cared about. That was my marriage. Right? I was married to drugs, not my wife. Right? And like
it's a good line.
Good line.
yeah, so like great line. But like it's the truth, right? Like I was married to drugs. And that's
Right.
all I cared about. Like as long as my wife is taken care of in my mind, right? Because she's not going to tell me if she's okay or not okay after I sit down with her for 2 minutes and literally just express like, oh, it's okay, we'll figure it out, this and this.
Yeah.
And then I just go out and get blitzed. Like I come in, she knew I was high, obviously, or most likely knew. I didn't necessarily hide it. I wasn't, I was pretty honest. I wasn't honest that I was using every single day.
Right.
And I wasn't honest about what I was using. But, so that progressed. Like, over the years, it really progressed. When we had our first son, AB, who's a rock star. He's a king. Really,
He's got the best godfather.
He does. And like
He's
when my wife was in labor, I was on Xanax. Like I wasn't on Oxy, but I was on Xanax. And like the only thing I could think about, not the only thing, but like one of the things I could think about was when she had the baby, are we getting Oxy? Right? Because like my access at that point was somewhat limited. It wasn't limited, but it was somewhat limited. And I was like, how much Oxy are they going to give us?
So just getting into
Wow.
like the brutal details there, right? So you start Oxy when you're 21?
Probably 20.
20 years old. Before you got married, you started.
Yeah.
Okay. So I assume that got progressively worse?
Yeah.
Okay. So in your height, how much Oxy were you
Were you
doing?
taking a day?
Yeah.
In my height, let's say 80 milligrams per dose. So like 80 milligrams. When you go to the dentist or you have surgery, like an ACL or shoulder surgery, they give you pills that are 5 milligrams.
But that wouldn't be a dentist.
So
But
do the math.
you mean a knee doctor? Sorry for being honest. So when you go to a dentist and you get ACL surgery.
No, when you go to the dentist to get a tooth pulled,
Yeah.
they give you 5 milligram Percocet.
That's what they're giving you?
Got it.
So they're
You
giving
were taking
when you get
16
your-
of those.
When you get your ACL, when you get surgery on your ACL, they're giving you 5 milligram Oxy. That's what they're giving you. So
And you were taking 16.
80 a
I
day?
was- in one dose. So it wasn't 16 at a time. It would be like 16 over 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, it was brutal. At my height. That was at my height.
So how long after that First of all, how long were you doing that for? Let's say that height lasted how long?
That was towards the end.
But I'm saying that was what, like a 2-month span type of thing?
Maybe a little bit longer, but
Okay, fine. And then and when you checked into rehab, it was after that point?
yeah. So let's get into how I got to rehab.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
The
say
urgent care.
when did it become a serious?
Yeah, so
serious
as
issue
I
and started affecting yourself.
Obviously, like my outside life was suffering. Couldn't really. I was holding a job, but barely, just to get
Right.
by. I wasn't the best husband, wasn't the best father, 100%, right? And I looked like shit. I mean, I was just looked like a skeleton, honestly. And it came to the point where like I started to like just fiend for drugs all the time, right? Like it was I think right before on Purim of last year, like 2 years ago, right? So I started drinking, and immediately, like, I always loved Purim, like it was something I really enjoyed, and this time, like, I didn't feel any happiness. I was like, oh, like I'm drinking into empty feelings right now, which
Right.
is just dangerous. And that was right before COVID hit, right? That was right when COVID was starting to become a thing, and like when I was in St. Louis, I hurt my back, right? And I was in pain the first time I went to urgent care, and they gave me like I think 40 pills on a
Of what?
of oxy.
Oxys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was on a Thursday night, I believe, Thursday or Friday or something like that. And then by Sunday morning, when I was scheduled to come back to Miami, those were gone, like completely gone.
That's insane. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
It
crazy.
was gone. And because obviously as you go, your tolerance builds up, and
Right.
you know what you have to do to get high, right? Like it's just you know. Like I was that math I was good at, other math not. But like, so like it just became like I knew what I needed, and I would do anything to get it. So, Sunday morning I went back to the urgent care. I wasn't in that much pain then, a little bit, but not much. I didn't need pills. Tylenol and Motrin would have done it, for a normal person. But, I put it on that I was still in pain. I was traveling for a couple weeks. I just needed a supply. And they gave me a supply, which was just ridiculous. Like we're in 20. You don't do, like, the DEA monitors what you give out.
Right.
But they gave I think it was 60 or 70 10 milligram pills. So those lasted me, through like that first week of COVID. And as I started to wean off of that supply, I started to start getting really sick, like pretty dope sick. And I think I ended up in the hospital. Of course, everyone around me didn't know what it was. Like I didn't really know. I knew it was from the drugs, but like I put on a show like, oh, I just don't feel well, right? Like what's going on? And in the hospital, they just give you fluids, whatever. But that's when I knew like, this is a continuous thing. I'm always getting sick when I'm coming down off of these things, right?
Yeah.
Like my habit was I would get a ton of pills, rip through them, get sick, wait till the next time I can rip through them continuously.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it was like right when COVID hit, so I was like this is dangerous. Like I'm home all day. All I want to do is get high. Like when COVID first hit, I was like, hell yeah, this is awesome. Like no work, you're still getting paid. Whatever it was, the stimulus was coming out. I don't remember exactly how they did it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
COVID seemed, for like a lot of people in the beginning, like a lot of people like felt like you, I feel like, just from what I'm remembering, like, yay, COVID, no work and no expectations, and the government's giving us money, and like this all seems good. But very quickly, I mean, we know a lot of people, COVID exposed a lot of issues.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Like a lot of issues
For sure.
within people's marriages, within their personal
People
life.
in close quarters like that for a while.
And you finally have to, like, you have no distractions,
Yep.
right?
No
Distraction, right? Like
distractions.
a lot of times, addicts, us, whether you're functional or not, you're trying to escape, right? Like
And there's nowhere to escape.
There's nowhere to escape to. So
There's- yeah.
I didn't often use in the morning. When COVID hit, I was using the second I woke up.
So that's what I was gonna say. Like someone like you, let's say, who was, let's call it a functional addict in the sense where you were still holding down the 9 to 5, maybe doing it high many days, but you were still able to do it. All of a sudden, and that was keeping you somewhat in check. The fact you had a job, and at the end of the day, you still felt that anxiety about needing to provide. You could have just ditched that. Now you don't have that responsibility, and it's totally open season. It's like you can
Correct.
just do whatever you want to do.
Exactly. So and that's what it was. Like that's how I felt. I was so excited about COVID in the beginning because I was like, wow, no responsibility because I'm getting paid through however
Right.
I forget how I was getting paid, but I was getting paid a little bit, and I could pay rent, do what I need to do, and also use as much drugs as I can. And
Just watch Netflix all day.
watch Netflix all day, right? And like my wife would take AB to her parents during the day, and like I would just be home, and it was like perfect timing, right? And and as that, I would say a week later, my dad called me, and he basically said to me, "If you need to go to rehab, just let me know. Like I got you covered. Just let me know."
Can I ask you a semi-personal question?
Yeah.
So, and you could plead the fifth on this. Are you close with your dad now? / were you always close with him?
Yeah, wasn't always close with him. I'm definitely close with him now.
You are?
Yeah, close with him now. We'll get into how that happened. But, he always, my father he has the biggest heart. Like, he wants what's best for his kids. And anyone that knows my dad knows that he's business, like, mind focused. Right? Like, so he felt that what he was doing in those times. I'm just pointing that out. Like, whatever he did, he felt was best for his kids. And I can relate to that, being that I'm a father now, I get it. Right. It's like you're going to do everything you can to save your kid. And at a certain point, it was kind of too late for them to step in, But so that call to my dad from my dad started triggering, and it was a loving.
What did he tell you on that call?
It was a loving call. It wasn't like you need to go to rehab, you need help. It wasn't like yelling at me. He was just like,
what did he tell you?
He just said, if you need treatment, if you need help, I got you. Okay. Don't worry about it.
That's
that was something that, like, when he said it, I remember like my chest like kind of like opening a little bit. Like, wait, maybe there's some relief here, right? Because I was obviously like I said, the emotional pain kept getting worse and worse over the years and never got better. So he kind of got the ball rolling in my head up very slowly, and then Pesach came, and right before Pesach, I don't know what I was just tired, man. Like I was so sick, really tired. And I was just kind of beat. Like, I was like, this is just not, like, I can't live like this. I'm going to die if I don't stop, right? And I had that thought, like, relatively clear, but not super clear, because when you're an addict, you don't want to look at that.
Right.
And then right before Pesach, I decided, okay, like, I'm going to go outside. I think Pesach was a Wednesday night, and I went outside on my porch in North Miami, which makes a lot of sense because North Miami's gross. But, like, you feel like you're gonna die just living there. But, like, it just, like, I had my last, like, what I told myself, which I told myself 1,000 other times before, that this is the last time. But I really felt something different. Like, this is the last time I'm smoking weed. I'm done. I didn't know rehab. I didn't think I was going to treatment. I just said I'm done, right? And I told myself, don't take, obviously it's very dangerous to just stop Xanax and to stop Oxy, because those were my two drugs that I was consistently on, including weed. But, like, Xanax and Oxy were my things. So it's very, very dangerous just to stop. You'll die. Or you may not die, but you have seizures and all those things. So I started to kind of, like, just take just the bare minimum, so I wouldn't get necessarily dope sick or have that, like, anxiety that came with it.
Right.
And at the Seder, like, I only had, like, maybe like a 2-minute glimpse of, like, happiness for, like, just 2 minutes. I was like, wow, okay, this could work. Like, maybe not using is something that I can gain from.
It's doable.
Right? And then obviously the dope stick started kicking in. I'm like, hell no, like, I'm not doing this. And, so that night I went to sleep. I had a crazy, like, vivid dream about, the past relationship I was in. And I woke up the next day literally feeling like that person was right there, and, like, I had to, like, address it. And what was really crazy about that is that dream literally continued when I went to sleep that afternoon, that night, the next day, the next night, so on and so forth. And right when Yontiv was over, I had a friend who just got out of, like, an 18-day in-and-out treatment center. Not a real treatment center, but, like, an in-and-out, just build your insurance, go. And I called him and I said, hey, what made you go? Like, when did you know that was time to go? And he said to me, I had these crazy dreams. And I literally just said, like, that's it. I hung up the phone.
It was like a sign from God.
It was. And I hung up the phone. I didn't even go inside to talk to my wife. I just called my parents and I said, I'm going. So wherever I'm going, I'm going. We'll figure it out, like, in the next 24 hours, but I'm getting into treatment. And they were like, I think my mom was crying. She was so happy. I mean, my mom cries a lot, but that was a real cry.
Yeah, she does.
She does. But, like, she was just relieved, like, finally you're going to get the help you need. And, so I obviously had that conversation with my wife, and, I still was very unsure what rehab meant once I didn't know anything about sobriety. Like, I really genuinely thought, like, it just meant going in, getting this stuff out of my system, and just white knuckling the rest of it, and so that's what I started. That's why.
Could you the term white knuckling is an important term. So for people listening, are you comfortable speaking out the definition of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So white knuckling for me meant, I think for most people means, like, you're not gonna actually, like, you're gonna, like, fight it.
Right. You're not gonna get to the root of the problem.
I'm so strong now. I can fight this addiction.
And the problem,
such bullshit.
again,
like, it's never gonna happen. But, like,
what I'm basically asking, white knuckling is a negative term, if you will, in the sense where it basically, if I'm not mistaken, it's basically saying that you're not facing the root of the issue.
You're not facing
and
the
you're
root of
ultimately
yeah.
going to crash.
Correct. You're not facing the root of the issue, and you think you're strong enough that by doing X, X, and X, now you can fight this.
Right.
Right. And
You think willpower alone
correct.
will be able to win.
Correct.
It's
And
really
you
what it
can't
is.
fight addiction. It's not something you fight head on.
Meaning,
It'll kill you every
it's
time.
not.
So,
It's not a willpower based thing. You need to understand.
100%.
It's like you need to understand the enemy. You can't
Yeah.
just, you know.
So, throughout those couple of days, I started, I was speaking to a therapist at the time, and she's great. She really helped me get to this point, where I was kind of starting to think about, like, getting clean. She didn't really say outright, hey, you have a drug problem.
This is
but-
before rehab.
This is before rehab. So, like, when I called her to tell her, hey, I'm going to treatment, she's like, where are you going? Did you do research? And I'm like, what do you mean research? Like, rehabs are different? I didn't even know, right? And then I started to do some research. I called my brother, Jordan, because I was having, obviously, like, I was withdrawing, so that it messes up your head, like, completely. And then also, like, I said, do you know anyone that's in recovery? Or anyone or not, I didn't say that word at the time. I said, do you know anyone that got clean or stopped using drugs? And what do I do? And he's like, yeah, I actually know someone. So here's his number, talk to him. And I called him, I said, hey, I'm planning on going to this place in Florida. Like, I thought my wife was going to be able to come visit me. It would be easy, like, whatever. And he was like, no, don't go there. It's a bad place. They'll take you in, they'll spit you out, and they'll want you to come right back, right? Because, like, that's what a lot of these places do.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to connect you with a guy, Zvi, out of, New York, who he's in recovery, and he's in the treatment field. Talk to him and see what comes out of that. So I gave this guy, Zvi, a call, and that conversation changed my life forever. Like, I don't talk to him now much, but, like, I'm so grateful for that conversation because it finally made me comfortable with who I was, because everything that he was communicating to me that he went through was everything that I've been going through for the last 5-6 years. Like, everything, word for word, verbatim. Kind of like when Label gave that speech at the event, how I related to that. Like,
right.
He basically just summarized how my yeshiva experience was in 30 minutes, which I haven't been able to articulate my entire life. This guy did the same thing when it came to.
So he got you in the end of the day into the right rehab.
Right?
Well, yeah. He's a recovering addict, so it was eye opening for me to see there's other people like me.
Right.
Right? Like, wow, holy crap! Like, there's someone else out there that felt the exact same way I did, right? And that was huge for me. So he basically said there's one treatment center in Colorado I want you to go to. Look into that. It's very expensive. So I told him my parents will do whatever. They'll, like I said, my dad got it.
Rosenblums can make it rain.
Yeah. So he basically.
I think, by the way, can I just say two things? Going back to your father calling you, I think there are two things that are important to take note of. One is that it's an extremely impressive move for a dad to be able to call up non-judgmentally and just say, I got you. Obviously, that's like a dream come true there. That's one thing to be grateful for. And the second thing, obviously, is that he has the financial means, thank God, to be able to do that as well. Obviously, the barrier to getting help in this industry, unfortunately, is significantly high.
It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, I got extremely lucky.
Yeah, I'm saying in that regard. So it's like
my dad could have taken an approach of, hey, I'm not paying for your treatment. This was your decision to, based on his mindset. This was your decision to get your life like this. You go fix it, right? But no, it was the total opposite. It was a loving approach. It was,
awesome.
I got you covered. Whether it's your bills, anything you need, like, I got it.
That's fantastic.
Right? And that transpired also to my in-laws. Like, they were very supportive when I sat down with them and told them I'm going to, to treatment, and I don't know how long it's going to be, and I don't know what's going on, but I'm going. Like, that's it. And, so they really, like, everyone involved was super supportive. I found the right place. Like, I was actually excited to go. Before I hopped on the flight, that was a different story. But, I told my wife before I left that I'm going to come back to Jason that you never met, that I know was there, right? And she was like, no, like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but okay, sure. And,
dude,
I
just go get help.
I can actually see her saying that.
She was so, and granted, she should have been, but she was so fed up with the bullshit. Like, she was just like, whatever, dude. Like, if you want to go, go. Like,
just go get help and come back here and freaking be able to make some macaroni, okay, without falling on your face.
So it just came to that point where, like I said, everyone was super supportive around me. I remember waking up, and I remember that feeling of leaving, kissing my wife and my son goodbye. Like, it was so painful. But, like, I knew that, like, on the person that drove me to the airport offered me a joint on the way. I said no. Should have said yes. But, but in hindsight, it was like, what the fuck?
Last one.
What the hell? Why not? So, like, might as well have one. So, but when I got to Colorado, I wanted to get back on the next plane back to Florida. I was like, this is not happening. I'm not stopping drugs right now. Right. And I sat in that terminal for 4 hours crying on the phone to my brother, Jordan, and I was like, I'm not going.
Why did you make that? What triggered that switch?
It became real.
It became real that you needed to stop.
It became real that I felt like, first of all, like it's scary to go into treatment.
Right.
Like it's very scary, not knowing much about it. Like it's scary to go in and not know, like, I didn't think I was gonna have a phone. I ended up having a phone because of like, certain things that happened there, in a good way. Like it was great for me to have.
But weren't you so desperate for help at that time?
I was, but like my mind was everywhere.
Got it.
Yeah, you can't think straight.
No, I know.
Can't think
Back to
straight.
back.
So like I was messed up on that flight. Like I popped as many drugs as I could, like without dying. Before I got there. I got there, and like the nurse that Michelle, she was amazing. So she was like, "You look like shit. Like I'm just gonna like take you to your room. Everything's gonna be okay." Like she just calmed me down like so much,
Got it.
right? And like they started searching my bags. When they were searching my bags, I started bawling. I was so freaking scared of what was going on, right? Like I'm not. This isn't me. Like I'm not a drug addict, right? Like I just didn't know, right? And saw some people coming in that looked really bad, like really really bad. And I'm
Like Breaking Bad.
yeah, like what is going on here? Like this, I can't surround myself with people like this for the rest of like what's going on. And
You're like, this isn't me. This isn't Jason Rosenblum.
yeah, and like once So once I started
What's your
talking,
takeaway from that you are them? Like what's your...
I am them. 100% I am them. And once I started talking, like now, obviously I have a complete different view of that. But, like at the time I was more like closed-minded and obviously like I had no right to be, but I was. So I was just scared in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then as I went through, I went through detox first, which I don't recommend to anyone. Like it's detox itself is a reason for me to never pick up drugs again. It was so brutal.
Right.
So bad. Like just
What are the symptoms there?
yeah, like I was throwing up for, maybe weeks, I don't remember, but a very long time. I couldn't eat. They had to put fluids in me. Like, it was just to get me by. Like, it was bad. It was really, really, I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom. Like, it was horrible. And like, knowing me, I couldn't even get outside to smoke a cigarette. So that's how bad it was. Equate that, so like, it was so bad. And once I started getting through that, I dove into the therapy, right? Like, I went 100%. I didn't know if it was going to work. I just said, I'm in. Like, I'm here. I'm in. I didn't know
there and you just dove
I didn't know how long
into
I was staying. I thought it was maybe 30 days. Ended up being over 3 months. But like, I'm in. Just teach me the way, right? And like, I went all in. And that's part of something where like people that are in treatment, a lot of people don't go all in and they end up back, right? Or they don't do the work and they end up back. Like I did the work. Credit to me. Credit to the therapist. Not every single therapist there was A++, but I made them A++ because I had to do the work. Right, and I was dedicated, and I started to see.
Good for you.
So I think first of all that's like the super impressive part because this is one of my biggest pet peeves is that everyone wants the result and no one wants to put in the work in everything in life. So what it sounds like you're saying, and you mentioned something briefly earlier on, is that like you don't have a choice of getting the addiction. Obviously, we spoke about that for a while, maybe too much earlier on. But you don't have a choice of getting into it. But you mentioned something about and you threw out there. But it is your responsibility to get out of that. Right, so could you just expound on that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, no one's gonna fix you, right? Like it's just because addiction is a disease, and just because you don't necessarily have that choice, you got to get out of it. No one's gonna get out of it for you, right? And it comes down to the fact of like I was ready to move once I got in there, and I started implementing habits that there's a gym every single day. I still do that now, right? And granted, I'm not like giant now, but like I'm not a skeleton anymore, and I'm happy with how I look. But the bottom line is I don't do it for the look. I do it because that's what keeps me healthy.
It's a self-care based practice.
Yeah, self-care. Like I do the gym every day. I don't meditate every day. I did at the time. And I go to meetings, I have a sponsor.
I was actually, I wanted to ask all these things. It was, and I'm just gonna dive into it, but you can talk about this stuff as well. But I wanted to ask a question that was going to be more enthralled of the entire rehab experience. I wanted to know basically what you learned about yourself a lot, and like what you learned, like did you learn about life, yourself, and things in general, and like these types of things are gonna go into it as well, like basic daily things that you learned that.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you take me through 1 day of rehab?
Correct. Yeah, sure.
I'm curious to hear
I'll
that.
take
For
you
someone
through-
listening, I don't
I'm
know.
gonna take you through 1 day rehab, and then I'm gonna answer his question.
Yeah.
I'll
Or
make
you
it-
could do.
Yeah, no.
I'll try to do it as
It's fine. Answer his
synonymous
question.
as
1 day
possible.
of rehab, and then
Yeah.
and then you can
So
talk
rehab,
about what
like,
rehab was for you and what you learned about
rehab.
yourself.
A day in rehab for me was I would wake up at 6 o'clock every single day, go to the gym. Right? And I had like 2 or 3 people I worked out with, and we had a guy that was there who I'm still close with today. really walking us, like motivating us to keep going, showing us new workouts because we didn't know jack, right? Like we were all skinny or like just
Tiny, yeah.
like drug addicts that were like just recovering. Like we were still sick, right? Or still am, but like so he would really walk us through the workouts. I would go eat breakfast, and that was something I never did. I never ate breakfast. I would get a protein shake, which was healthy, and eat a healthy breakfast. And then I would usually go back to my room for a bit. Then I would go to group. First we would do a check-in, which everyone would kind of, the group itself, whoever was in my group, my therapy group, would sit down, do a reading, and talk about it. So that was just a spiritual type of thing we did every day. Then I would go to group. We had like a 2-hour group therapy session, which was more intense than the actual one-on-ones. Like the projects and the assignments they give you at this place that I went to was just, you got to dig, and they don't let you not, right? There was no choice but go in. Right, and like
That's
I said,
the group therapy.
Yeah. We had some projects that were just, grown men, some double my age, some closer to my age, crying,
Doubling over.
Like just the most brutal experiences, and you grow from that. You grow through that connection with every single person there. I can genuinely say that every single person in my group, most of them I still talk to. Some of them I don't, but so you have group, you go to lunch, eat a healthy lunch. Great food, so go through that, and then we go to, sometimes you'd have like a different modality of therapy. There was like DBT or like psychodrama, that was crazy. You would like act out a trauma that happened to you, but it would feel so real, like it was insane. Like craziest stuff I ever experienced.
Yeah, I can imagine that shit.
And sometimes they would incorporate like some cool things like breath work and all these things that were absolutely crazy.
I've heard like other places do like equine therapy, like with horses, like different like these type of things. That I've heard more in Arizona based as opposed to like Colorado.
I think Colorado. Because of COVID, they couldn't. They I think they do offer it now.
They do?
The place that I went to.
Yeah.
I think because they had like a horse barn down the street, but because of COVID, they couldn't do a lot of the stuff, the outdoor stuff. But we did a lot of hiking. Just a lot of like every approach was met holistic. You go out on hikes, right? You meditate in the mountains. Like it sounds cliche, but it's not. Like it's unbelievable.
I would say even more so. It sounds.
When did the days end?
They didn't. Like we would have like you would.
What
have,
time do you go to sleep?
So you would have like basically you would have the second group, which is like a different modality every day. And then you would have, I think it was like sometimes a break, an hour or 2-hour break, which for me, that meant like going to the hot tub, in the mountains, beautiful, just appreciating nature, not being high, not having a beer in my hand in the hot tub, right? Like getting used to that and just being able to like appreciate that.
Right.
Going to the sauna, just sitting there. Yeah, granted, where I went, not every rehab has that. So, I was lucky and fortunate to have that. So, then I have dinner. And then we would do like a AA meeting. Usually they would take us out to one, but because of COVID, we had to have them like in-house. But that's when relationships were formed. That's when you're sitting down with the people. You don't have a phone. I happen to have one, because they allowed me to because of my, well, I'm getting into why I had one. But,
yeah, okay.
So, I was able to connect with every single person there. Right, and like just grow those relationships, which were key to me for getting through.
Could you imagine not having a phone for 3 months and being stuck with people?
No.
We would actually.
I lost mine for 5 days and I almost went ballistic.
Yeah,
right.
So I'm saying, as far as a connective experience, it would probably be.
It'd be insane.
Actually, have to talk to the person.
Yeah.
It's like wild concept.
It'd be a wild concept.
And when
My grandparents would be very, very happy.
Yeah. when you're in this situation where you're constantly opening up, you're starting to learn to trust people. Right, and you're starting to learn to open up to them. So when you're sitting outside at 10 o'clock at night smoking or whatever, just smoking a cigarette or doing whatever, like you can connect with them on really deep stuff.
Yeah, no one, and you have no one else to talk to.
No one else to talk to, and like it becomes your family, and like and it was. So for me, that's what a basic day in rehab went like, and then I would go to sleep and do it all over again. And it was consistency.
Wow.
Consistency was really important.
You getting like. Were they like I've heard like most like from other people that have went to rehab that like they're pretty regimented in the schedule and like you were kind of sleeping by 10:30, 11. It was kind of like lights out so you could get a good night's sleep.
Correct. Yeah, it was definitely like they didn't come in and make sure you're sleeping. I'm sure some places do that, but they, you would get whatever. Some people are on medications or detoxing or tapering, whatever. You go get your meds and go to sleep. And like you couldn't really. I mean, obviously, like you could go out, like the where we lived, where we dormed. In the place that I went to was locked, so you couldn't like go into like the main building. Right. But it was you can go out and play pool, play ping pong, whatever. Like just if you can't sleep. I had many nights that I couldn't sleep. It just happened. So, and then what was your question?
My question is, what are the main things you learned about yourself and life in general? Like, what life things do you learn, like, in rehab? And, was there anything that you took away, like, that you used daily? And you were talking about even a little bit before I interrupted you, you were talking a little bit about, like, the daily stuff that you do, meditation, gym. Right. Those are practical things, but, like, I guess life perspectives and life lessons that you learned that you didn't appreciate as much, and maybe rehab dug them into you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, like, for me, being grateful was something that I'm able to do every single day now. Like, right now I live in a beautiful place, a beautiful family, a beautiful wife. Like, everything is just, like, everything's going well.
That's
for me.
a sentiment I hear from a lot of people that go to rehab. Yeah, gratefulness is.
I mean, so I think. And I've even discussed this with Jason privately, but, like, just the art of practicing gratitude and making that a proactive thing versus and just how your perspective shifts. And I hear this from a lot of people who come out of rehab, and I've had my own experiences in life personally where now I'm able to appreciate just having a roof over my head, being able to pay my bills, having food, just the simplest thing, sitting around awesome friends in a beautiful studio, having everything I really need. And, like, all right, so I'm not not worth $10 million right now. Like, I don't give a darn about that. That's not important to me anymore.
Correct.
So, I mean, you mentioned gratitude. Is that, like, something you practice proactively? Like, do you have gratitude lists and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do gratitude lists. I don't do them every single day, but I definitely take time every single day to be grateful. My dad, if he's watching this, probably won't want to hear it, but, like, sometimes AB comes home from camp or school at, like, 4 o'clock, and we're like, Daddy, take me to the pool. And, like, that's the best thing I can hear. Yeah. Like, he wants to spend time with me, and, like, I love that, and I do. I take him to the pool, not every single time, but most times, it's like.
But most times.
If I could, but, like, it's also, like, it's just those relationships that I have with my son and my wife, and, soon to be my son who's, 3 months old, so that the relationship's developing, but it's just being able to hold him and being grateful for that moment, right, is amazing to me, right? I didn't have that before. I was always, like, pushing that away so that I could go get high. And I don't have that. I don't have that urge anymore. But in terms of, like, what I learned from rehab, like, I got myself back, right? And I'm never letting go of that.
When's the last time you could remember yourself being Jason?
6th grade.
6th grade.
Yeah, 6th, 7th grade. And like, I got myself back, and I knew it too. Like,
when did you know it?
I knew it when I got back from rehab, and, like, it was tough the first day or two. Like, I made when I got back, I went straight to the medicine cabinet just out of habit. There was nothing there because my wife's awesome and she flushed everything down the toilet. But, like, I was immediately in that habit, and I just went to a meeting.
Right.
Like, and it was just that fight, like, that inner fight that I had, and that confidence within myself. Like, I got this. Like, I'm not going back.
Do you feel that, aside from other factors, you can play the fifth on this, I'm just going to ask you, do you feel that your marriage is better now since you've come back, and is it in the best place it's ever been?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's never been better.
Right.
And it quickly got better. Like, when I was in treatment, it got better because I was communicating with my wife a lot. I didn't obviously share everything that was going on there because that's something that I had to focus on. But I was honest, and it was really nice to be honest. It was really great to just be how I feel, start being confident in myself, and she was super supportive, so that helped build up my confidence coming back, from treatment, and then the relationship really just, took off from that point. Like, wow. It's been amazing since then. So, and I have to be grateful for that too. Just circling back to that. So it's now it's like I take those small moments, the really small moments. I'm committed to my recovery. I have a sponsor, John B.
Outer Banks.
He's the
That's
man.
the last thing I was actually going to ask you about was tell us a little about recovery. And I guess for anyone out there that either has been told they need to go to rehab, or they themselves feel the need to, or things of that nature, right?
Yeah, by the way, that's probably more the important part. If you think you might need to go, then
right. If you feel that you need to go, or you feel like, and again, not in a stigma way. I think a lot of people have that stigma. I need to go to rehab, or like I can't go to rehab. Like when you said when you walked in there and you're like, that's not me. I don't need rehab.
Right.
Rehab's not a bad thing. Rehab just means I'm looking myself in the mirror and saying, and self-reflecting and saying, this is something that I need in order to make my life as wholesome as it could possibly be. And Jason, for you, going to rehab took a kid that lost himself for 10 years, it sounds like, almost, 6th grade up until you were 25 years old, 26 years old,
10.
10, 12 years, and your life is back. So for me, it's like when I'm talking about rehab, I just want to make it very clear. It's like it's not a bad thing. It's not something in any way we like. It's something that
in a sense, like I don't.
It's
even
a necessity.
Yeah, I'm saying
in
Jason going to rehab to me didn't like change my view of him in any way. Like I didn't see it any different.
And
again, that could just be
right. I just want people to know because we talked about this actually on the pod that we didn't release yet. We talked a little bit about what is expected coming out of rehab. People think that rehab is a quick fix. You just go in there and you come out. And
so that's important. I want to hear from him.
I know. I'm asking.
On that.
If I'm going too long, just cut me off.
No, I'm asking. Is talk about recovery and like what it means to be committed to the things you learned in rehab and committed to the idea that I'm an addict. This is a part of me, and I need to make this a fight every day.
And just to expound on that, when we had Poznansky and Tropper on, we didn't release this part, but I don't think we did. But Poznansky basically said he's like the addiction guru. He's written books on the 12 steps. He's like very big in this field. Tropper is amazing as well, but she is not as much of like an expert per se on addiction. But Poznansky said that the most difficult point for rehab is when people come back and they have that first hurdle. That's where
push through,
yeah. And he said that's like the point where most people don't make it through because they come back on this high, and then about a month in, or even shorter sometimes, they get hit with that temptation, and they're like, "Why am I having this temptation?" They kind of get very in their own head, and a lot of them falter. So, but he says if you make it through that, your chances of like having real success is like exponential.
That's it. So two questions from that, and then I want you to speak. Is did you have that hurdle? Like, can you like look at it right now and be like, oh, that was that after 6 weeks. I noticed that was when it got really difficult, and I had to push through that specific time. And beyond that, what every day is like out of rehab, and what every day is like, being in quote unquote recovery.
So I 100% had that moment. Whether it was the first time when I got home, that first night looking in the medicine cabinet, I was like, oh shit, like I don't want to go back to this. And also like a couple, I don't know if it was like 2-3 weeks after that, I was in St. Louis at my brother's house, and of course it's not his fault. Like I was in his guest bathroom and I opened the medicine cabinet because that's just what I do, and there was just Oxy sitting there, and like I was like, oh shit, like I just hit gold. That was my first thought, right? And then I immediately, like my first thought was, do I pour these out of my pocket and put this back, or do I just go bring it to him? And that's what I did. I said, here, like take these.
Good for you.
And
That's amazing.
That was one of the big things I did. And at the time I had a sponsor, it wasn't John V, it was a different sponsor that I set up before I got back from treatment because I needed that accountability right away. And I he's not my sponsor now because it just didn't work. But I called my current sponsor because when I first got back to Miami, what I did was I went to a meeting. Like that was the first thing I did. I think it was the next day when I woke up. I Googled the meetings. I called the hotline. I confirmed that the meeting was there, and I went. And the person who's leading the meeting is my sponsor now, right? And I have a great relationship with him. He's my family, right? And part of that is the beauty of recovery is that those relationships, is the self-growth that comes along with it. And people that are using now, like whether they're listening to this or not, or someone that's using now, like they're scared. They're scared shitless. Like they don't know what to do with themselves. They don't know who to reach out to. They don't know
how their way out of it.
They may not think they're an addict. They may just be like how I was in the beginning, which was a lot of pain. But at the end of the day, like recovery is amazing. There's nothing better. Whether you're an addict or not an addict, like to wake up every single day grateful, to wake up every single day appreciating literally every single thing you have,
and feeling good, also.
Feeling amazing, right? Like not waking up with that pit in your stomach,
right?
When you did that for 12 years,
not waking up with that shame, that guilt, that there's so much.
There's still a lot of there's
that shame is.
But I'm just a
screw up. I'm just a mess. Right. How do I get out of it? I have no way out of it. I can't tell anyone.
No need to go find drugs or do any of those things. And
no need to lie.
No need to lie. All those things are like amazing things that I appreciate every single day, and to people that are suffering from it, it's there is help for you.
Can I ask you a question? Has helping people become and sharing your experience? Well, that definitely sounds like it. But has helping people become an imperative part of your life in the sense of like something that you now?
Is that a calling?
Yeah, has that become a calling?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like my innate nature is not to come on here and share what I just shared with everyone, right? Because it's going on the internet. Anyone can Google it.
Yeah.
You know, like it's there. But the reason that I decided to do that and wanted to do that is because there's so many people like me. We know a bunch, right? I guarantee you are listening to this right now. And you know, if it makes a difference in one person's life, it's worth it. Because I was that person that just by having one conversation went ahead and changed my life. But by me changing my life, I changed my kids' lives. My kids will know what addiction is, and they will not know what drugs are. Like, meaning they hopefully, God willing, will not know what it means to go pick up Oxy and other things in bad situations, right? Like, they hopefully will not do that. But if they do, I'm certainly prepared, right? And like, you know, it just becomes to, like, it changes everyone's life. Right, and that's something where, like, you know, someone that's suffering from it, it's not just affecting you. It's affecting your parents. It's affecting potentially, if you're married, your spouse. It's affecting your kids. It's affecting your employment, whether you believe it or not. It is, and it's affecting you. Which is the most important thing.
The collateral. Well, that's the famous thing about addicts being very selfish, because ultimately they're sick, and the only thing they care about, right, is just getting their fix, and it doesn't make a difference who is in their path of getting hurt. They'll screw up everything around them so they could get their fix.
Right, and I will never be able to repay my parents for what they provided me to do once I asked them for help. Besides for continuing in what I'm doing, right? And my goal in life is not to make as much money as I can. It's not to, you know, do X, X, and X. It's to literally help people that went through what I went through. And I'm not jumping into a career like that right now because that's just not where I'm at. I'm not able to just jump in and do something, which is something I learned, you know, when I was there, because I did jump into things in the past. But yeah, it's certainly a passion of mine for sure now. You know, anyone that's listening to this or, you know, wants to connect, absolutely get my information from these guys. But like, it's just something where, you know, if I can help any person,
it's therapeutic anywhere, for you also.
Jewish, not Jewish, it doesn't matter to me. It's just a matter of like helping someone through the worst time of their life.
Sharing your experience,
because if I could get better, if anyone listening to this is suffering from it, if I can get better, I promise you can. You know, I was that bad. You know, whether it was the amount I was using and how I was feeling, I promise you can get better. You know, and it's just a matter of wanting to do it, and it's a matter of loving yourself. I love myself.
Right.
But not in a selfish way. Like, I love myself now. I'm back to me.
And you love yourself now enough to take care of yourself.
Take care of myself, right? Like, I go to the gym
and to look after yourself.
I do these things.
And to want to look after yourself.
Right. Like, I do these things that aren't easy to do, but it's a commitment because I care about myself. I eat well. I do whatever it is. I do it because
you
I
had
care
Chinese
about
food. I saw that.
Yeah, I know. I cheated today, but like, you know, it's just a matter of like.
In fairness, he did sit in the airport for 8 hours.
He did. He did.
Third time's a charm, guys. But you know, it just comes down to this: like, if you're sick and you need help and you don't know where to go, I promise you, there's someone out there. There's people out there that can help you, and there's people out there that love you. And the bottom line is that, like, if you just make that first step, or if you're willing to take that step. You don't have to make it, but if you're willing to take that step,
there's a will, there's a way.
You can do it, and it's not about.
It sounds like your main message right now, aside from the fact that you're very committed to helping people and you have a certain sense of calling in this, is that to anyone listening to this, and again, you could confirm that this is accurate what I'm saying, but that no matter how bad you think your situation is, there is a solution.
Yeah, 100%.
Is that accurate?
There's a solution, and that solution is amazing. That's part of my message too. Is that it's not that solution. It's not just getting clean. It's recovering.
So that's what I was gonna say. Sorry, that's part of what I was gonna say. It's like I see you now, and you're happier than you've ever been, and it's like imagine you wouldn't have went and gotten help because you would have been too shameful to do it. Right. Like, look what you would have given up on now. Like, to me, it's like I would jump at that opportunity if I was in your shoes.
Yeah, today I woke up, I was tired as hell, got like 3 hours of sleep last night. I went to the airport. I sat in the airport for 8 hours. I came back here. You know, we're doing this podcast now, but today I was much happier, 10 times happier than the day I got married and the day that I had my first kid. And all those things. Because I woke up today, I texted my wife, I spoke to my son. You know, I did all those things that I wasn't able to do happily, you know, a year and a half ago.
Right. So. Well, Jace, I want to thank you for coming on. Third time's a charm. This one's going to work. But I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, Jason, I really appreciate you making
your story is interesting. It's a journey. It's amazing. Proud of you as a friend. Proud of you for what you went through, seeing what you've been when you were 21, 22, when we first met, where you are now as a 26, 27-year-old. your birthday's coming up in a couple of weeks, actually.
2 weeks.
Bro, you think I forgot? I don't forget, baby.
We're gonna be in Miami then.
Yeah,
Too.
correct.
go.
Yes,
Let's go.
yes, sir.
Soho?
Yes,
Boca.
sir.
Boca.
Boca.
Soho or Steakhouse?
Soho, bro. Soho with Ronald. But
Shout out to Ronald always.
But guys, thanks for listening.
Guys.
I hope you guys enjoyed, and
If
that's
anyone
a
has
wrap.
any questions or wants to speak with Jason, you can give me a call and reach out.
Yep, same here.
We'll put you in touch. All right, peace
All right,
and
that's a
love, guys.
wrap. Peace and love, guys.